see me typing, oh, sorry. If you see me typing, I'm not doing something else. I just might be taking notes because you might bring up something that I haven't thought about. So I'm always trying to
All
learn
right.
as we
Yeah,
go along.
perfect. Perfect. Whatever you want is everything's fine.
Okay.
Well, the first thing is well, why have you decided to run?
I mean, there's really a lot of reasons for it. I've recently hired some consultants, so I'm really hoping they're going to help me fine tune it so I don't just ramble on forever. But I think fundamentally, it's that I think like a lot of people, maybe in the world, but especially in the United States right now, you kind of see the direction the country is going in, and it's gone beyond just sort of distaste for it or frustration for it. It's sort of a historically we're
Yeah.
headed down a path that I think is dangerous for the entire world, and I am angry, and I don't really know what else would be as impactful if I'm successful for me to spend time doing right now. So it's sort of I angry and I want to do something. So I decided, okay, let me do this. Let me try to learn the
Yeah.
process. Maybe I can help other people down the line. But yeah, it's just got it. I think a lot of people just kind of are maybe in the same boat as me in the United States, and they just kind of want to stand up and scream. So it's like, okay, let me try to do it this way. This is going to be an approach that I'm going to do to take. So
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard many other candidates saying that.
yeah.
Which are the issues that you want to prioritize?
I think that I mean there's it's kind of that's kind of the interesting thing about trying to distill what you want to stand for. And again, it's things that I need to refine. I need to understand really what policies would work and what you can actually do when you're in Congress pragmatically. But the most immediate things that come to mind, and part of the reason I'm angry is because I do feel like most Democrats, we've lived through this a couple times already with a very conservative um, administration and a conservative Congress, and they have become on the right in this country. They've become so dysfunctional and so opportunistic that they're destabilizing the entire country and potentially the entire world because of our influence. And I want to first and foremost ensure that the people who are doing that right now, so the current Trump administration, face consequences for what they're doing.
Yeah.
What that means in practice, I'm not completely sure. I do know that some people, but they should all have to face some sort of judiciary hearing process because many of them have broken the law. Many of them have done things that seem as if they've broken the law. So I think that would be one of the big issues that I want to really advocate for. I think the second one would be more structural. I think we're at a point now where we can't just sort of rely on uh, an old way of doing things and sort of trying to form coalitions in Congress. Like we need to have some dramatic structural reforms to our government. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of things that entails, but I think one aspect that would be really important to discuss is how do we curtail the power that the executive has increased over the last several decades. When you have good actors, or
Yeah.
at least actors that want to maintain the stability of the country, it's not really a big deal, even if they're sort of authoritarian in their. And again, I think that's wrong, but we can keep trucking along. But now we're seeing that this is what happens when you have a bad authoritarian leader, and so that really that's kind of all encompassing also with the executive, where things like I have on like a lot of progressives and left leaning members, I have people said defund ICE, and I've said dissolve ICE. I just feel like that's kind of what they're just an agency. We can get rid of them. We can totally just get rid of the Department of Homeland Security and reformulate those agencies within the executive,
Yeah.
and that would be part of it too. So those are kind of my two big priorities. I think they need to happen as quickly as possible. And along with that, there's things like getting more money out of politics in this country. It's you because you probably talk to a lot of candidates in the United States. You're familiar with this, but when we talk to people in other countries that run for office, it it's almost mystifying that, I don't know how it works in Spain, but I do know a person in France, and the way it works there is they campaign for a month or two, and they get public funding, and that's kind of it. It's like, oh my goodness,
Yeah,
if I wanted to run for an election 20 years from now, I could just start fundraising if I wanted to, and just build a big pool of millions of dollars. And that's bizarre. It doesn't seem like it's a very good way to approach representative
yeah.
democracy. So yeah.
All right. Well, of course, ICE is one of the biggest issues right now, and I want to know what are your, what are the policies that you would like to implement on that matter?
What I again, it's like I really think it's not quite as a lot of the way in which people converse about this in the sort of media sphere in the United States is that somehow defunding ICE would be this unprecedented sort of thing that we would do. And it's really not. It's just a department within the executive. We can get rid of it. It used to not be there. It was INS before. What I would like
Yeah,
to see is that if we want to seriously discuss immigration and all the root causes of it, we can. But if we're just talking about immigration enforcement, then let's just get back to the INS model. Let's just get back to intelligence gathering, understanding who criminals are, and putting them through a judiciary process to either get them out of the country or whatever. But a militarized force is just absurd and it's disgusting. And I think and in a broader picture is that's why I think the Department of Homeland Security, which was created, in the wake of 9/11 and this war on terrorism that actually never manifested itself the way that they said it was happening. They're doing it right now with Iran, saying they're sleeper cells and all this just
yeah,
ridiculous lies. And so I really believe that we don't need the Department of Homeland Security. The agencies that are housed within it, they can be moved to different departments within some other cabinet level, and ICE itself just needs to be gotten rid of, and we need to just reformulate something like the INS again. There's just no reason to have it, and
yeah.
I think it's too rotten and too sort of it doesn't work correctly, and I think it's too structurally, I guess, unsound in terms of how I would want an immigration enforcement agency to work.
How's ICE affecting your district?
I mean, we've had some raids. I have wanted to participate when it was more of a heightened before ICE had been changing their tactics. I had joined the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, to help
Yeah,
try to go to Home Depots where a lot of immigrants might hang out. They might stay there all day trying to find work. And that's where ICE agents were picking up a lot of them. And I unfortunately never got to participate in any of those. I just didn't find the time to do it, and then pushed it around. But so that's kind of occurring. This district, though, is not made up of as many immigrants as other districts
yeah.
in Los Angeles and California. So it's not quite the same presence. But nevertheless, it's directly in the district, maybe not as much, but the city of LA has a tremendous number of immigrants and
Yeah.
second generation from immigrants. So it's like they're all being affected, and I can't really imagine what it must be like. It's terrifying, and I don't. Yeah, it just all I have is sympathy and the hope that I can do something with this run. And if there's any practical steps I can take on the ground right now, it's just I want to find them and then figure out how to help as much as I can.
Yeah. Well, many Democrat candidates talk about accountability. You talked about, some accountability to the Trump administration, and what policies would you like to see implemented to, um, so this administration is taking is hold accountable for all the corruption and other things that we're seeing that's that they're doing.
I mean, I think it's I'm not my job right now, my day job is as a data engineer. So I'm not an expert on policy and legislation. I don't know the limitations of what the Constitution whatever sort of legal codes we have at whatever levels can be modified or be utilized. But and this is especially going to be, I believe, it's going to be more difficult for Donald Trump himself than any of his cabinet members or the vice president or anybody else to actually figure out how to make him face some sort of justice. But the rest of them are easy. There's easily precedents in the past, historic precedents that we can utilize to find whatever legal whatever laws they may have broken, whatever violations they may have made. And I would go a step further and even say that there's law. We Congress is supposed to be a body that makes laws, and if we've discovered that someone has done something that we all kind of agree is a criminal offense, but there's no actual criminal offense in our legal system for it, then let's make a law for it, And even if they can't, if somehow we can't go back to bring people to justice who have violated this law in the past, because there is, I'm sure, a legal doctrine in that regard, then at the
Yeah.
very least we can push this, that we can make a law to ensure that it does not happen again. And this runs, a full gamut from anything like advocating for the racism in which ICE is operating to just sort of all of the illegal betting that we all know is going on within his administration. All of these people should be facing some sort of legal consequence, and if we don't have a law to bring them to justice, then we need to make them. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's sort of, yeah, it's every single thing. I don't know. One thing I would, this is just one item, and again, legal scholars, congressional scholars might, if they heard me say this, they may like, you're absurd, you're ridiculous, that wouldn't never work. But I think one thing that would maybe be really helpful is if Congress had a sort of permanent, um, uh, I don't know, some sort of legal framework in which they could have a permanent prosecutor. They had that after
Yeah.
Watergate, and that's why Kenneth Starr was able to go after Bill Clinton, his whole administration. So I don't really understand why, if Congress should be empowered to act as a counterbalance to the president, why we can't just install a prosecutor of some sort that
Yeah.
remains there. It's a dangerous thing, possibly. I know some people would say that it's like, well, once Republicans take over, they'll use it. It's like, well, they already have done this, so we need to be proactive and try to find a way to have at least one organization within Congress that can constantly, um, go after the executive branch, people in the executive branch when they violated the law.
Yeah.
That would be a suggestion. Don't know if it's workable
Yeah.
or
Yeah. It's
feasible.
yeah, it's totally possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, other big issues, of course, cost of living, and
Yes.
that is related to many issues, housing, healthcare, food prices, the war in Iran, of course, the foreign policy also, has a big impact on all these issues. So what would you like to see about, all these issues?
I mean, healthcare is how we do it. I'm not exactly, I wouldn't know for a fact, but Medicare for all is what people have been advocating for, and basically just a healthcare system in which the government funds everything, and it has to be everybody that has to be on it. Doesn't mean private insurance goes away. That is just a necessity at this point. And it's almost comical to me that we see countries that are even compared to the United States, almost underdeveloped, and they get universal health care because they understand how important it is for citizens to not have to worry about basic health needs. It's a moral issue, but it's also just a very like pragmatic issue about how a state is supposed to be run in the current era, the 21st century. When it comes to housing and the costs surrounding that, it's a much more complex issue. I am a socialist, though, so I generally will always can have in the back of my mind that whatever the financial industry writ large has done in that arena needs to be curtailed as much as we possibly can. It's not just from buying houses, but from however they have decided to use, however the real estate market is has worked for so long, in which it's
Yeah.
an investment instead of just somewhere to live. has to be solved in some way. I think lots more money for public housing would be very helpful, and at the federal level, we can put more money into HUD or other or possibly other organizations. But again, I'm not really sure the if those are the best solutions. But for me, housing is just it's a right and it's a moral issue, but it is also just an issue of stability. People have to have some. People need a home. People need food. This is if you do not provide this, or if you cannot create a system in which people can readily access it in some manner, then
Yeah.
the country begins to fall apart. When it comes to all of the international issues, there's lots of things that I would like to say that I don't know. They may sound too dramatic. I don't want to get in on ideas that I have had about reformulating the United States foreign policy. Or anything. I'm just one person. Like, what the hell am I talking about, right? Oh, I'm going to have the U.S. do this. But my feeling is that centrally, broadly speaking, and this to me is very historic, and a lot of people may get frustrated with me at saying this, but the United States has to accept the fact that it is no longer going to be a hegemonic power. If we accept that now, we can possibly steer ourselves away from disaster, again, global disaster or countrywide disaster. If we do not accept that,
Yeah.
uh, what happens after we don't accept it and we keep doing what Trump is doing recklessly or what other administrations have done, in a much more concerted way, but still uh, behaving as a hegemon, we're headed towards disaster. So we need to embrace that. What that all entails, I don't know. At least not right now. Again, I could elaborate, but none of it actually might be feasible at all. Yeah, and when it comes to foreign intervention, that's not the United States place, and I when it comes to Iran and Israel, I want to make it as clear as possible. I do not think that even though I've heard some very abhorrent uh, language from Israeli citizens, I do not think everyday Israeli citizens are the problem. I do not think that. I do not think that. Of course, I do not think that Jewish people across the planet are a problem.
Yeah.
I feel like that should go without saying, but of course you have to say this stuff. However, the government of Israel is it's in violation of so many international norms and laws, but also they are creating humanitarian crises across the region that they're in. And my personal feeling, it's how you curtail them. I don't exactly know, but I would, if you could just dictate whatever you wanted, I would cut off all of their support until their government is removed and a new government is put in place that guarantees, at the very least, equal status for Palestinians. Um, on top of that, I don't people many Democrats in Congress and elsewhere will discuss the Iranian situation. They will say, "Oh, well, the Ayatollah was awful and everything, so we're so happy he's gone."
Yeah.
I am at a point in my life where I do not want that is a different topic. What other countries and how they are currently formulated, their governments, their societies, is one thing that we can discuss that. But what I want to discuss is the US's role in any of these countries and how it has not helped the countries at all. And Iran's a perfect example. All the history of Iran with the Shah, the revolution. But right now, it needs to stop. I think if I had my way, we would just stop fighting. You'd pull everything back and you would take whatever concessions the Iranians were willing to give us because we fucked up. And that's our fault. We take the blame, grow up, stop killing innocent people, and become a respectable member of the actual global community instead of one that tries to tell everybody what to do.
Yeah.
If Iran is going to going to reform itself, possibly we can discuss that and the avenues that can go down internationally to help in that regard. But it's not our job to overthrow a regime for any number of reasons. It's just not our job. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm going to do a little bit of self promotion. I feel like it's self promotion, but I don't know if it is. So I recently went to Cuba this last weekend with the convoy that was there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's a perfect example. I met several Cuban people, and they all kind of generally didn't like their government. Okay, fair enough. they all seem to really have reverence for Fidel Castro, and they all seem to have reverence for Barack Obama and for Ernest Hemingway. So that was kind of interesting. But in the way that I would talk to them about it, or the way that I would talk to anybody else about it, is that I understand that. And for the Cuban people, that is possibly a really big issue that they need to think about and work through. And again, as a different subject, want to
Yeah.
talk about that. But what I want to address right now is the US's role in creating the impoverished situation they are in, of course, in the blackouts that they're dealing with, and
Yeah.
how much worse is it making their conditions, and how they've killed people as a result of it. And that is that needs to just stop. The United States has no position, and clearly by the administration that is in power right now in the United States, we are in no position to tell other countries that their administrations or their regimes are evil. Look at ours. Ours is disgusting and evil.
Yeah.
So internationally, a full-throated answer about everything, I don't know, but I do think it's time for the United States to pull back, realize it's not a hegemon
Yeah.
anymore, stop trying to interfere in other countries. We've never done it right, especially when we use military aggression at all, and let people try to figure human beings are smart. Everywhere in the world, they're intelligent. There's a few
Yeah.
dummies and there's a few evil people, but most people are capable, and there's a lot of them. We don't need to interfere, especially with our military. It only causes problems. It only kills people and hurts people, and I just don't like it. It disgusts me, and it really it conjures up feelings that I have never really had about some of the human beings that are in power right now and what I'd like to see happen to them. And that's as much as I can say. I don't know what I'm legally allowed to say, but that's
Yeah. Yeah, no, you support the focus on more domestic issues because those are when you have problems at home, you have to focus on the issues that you have at home first, and then
yeah, yeah.
uh
That's generally, I mean, I generally believe that, but it doesn't mean that the United States withdraws from the international community to just isolate
yeah,
itself. It means we try to, for the first time in the last almost 100 years, let's try to actually participate in the world as it is instead of us dictating how the world should work
yeah,
for our interests. That is not something I will support at all. I do not want to support that anymore. It is the inevitability of it is that we are again headed down some chaotic path that we will all be very upset about when it happens, or we'll be dead. And I just don't want to see that happen. So yeah.
yeah. Well, we mentioned ICE before, but I want to go back not to ICE specifically, but to civil rights and civil liberties. And if you see that, there's a crisis across the country, but in your communities, if you see this, um, this crisis regarding voting rights, how the Trump administration are going back in terms of supporting constitutional rights, civil rights, all these social key issues.
Yeah, I mean, that to me that's sort of that's a part of the electoral reform that might need to happen. The unfortunate part about conservatives today is that they don't even really try to couch their lies in some aspect of truth at all. They just lie. And so when he has talked about voter irregularity, and a lot of other Republicans have talked about voter irregularity, they're just wrong. It's not happening. The only people that are committing fraud are people like Elon Musk that sent out pre-filled out ballots, and that's
Yeah,
election fraud. It's not voter fraud, and voter fraud is tackled pretty well in this country. It's not something we need to address at all. So when it comes to issues like that, I would whatever we can do to ensure the enfranchisement of every person in this country to be able to vote safely. If there are gaps in that, we need to fill them. But in terms of addressing some of the accusations that have come out of Republicans' mouths, I want to say stupid fucking mouths, but the lies that they tell, I think uh, it's more about ensuring that they are stopped from telling lies. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't, but I also don't know if that's really addressing the key point of what you're asking. So I apologize if it's not.
No, I was, asking about if you think that if you've seen that civil rights and constitutional rights are being trampled down by the Trump administration, and to what extent it's going on,
Yes.
in
Yeah.
your district.
Honestly, again, I think when we're talking about ICE and other organizations right now, I'm on the very west coast of Los Angeles, so they haven't really come here. It's a very rich district. I am not rich, but it's a fairly wealthy district, it's a fairly white district. So it's one of those things that it has probably avoided a lot of the ramifications. However, saying that, I could be ignorant of things that have happened directly in this district, and I
Yeah,
apologize if I'm missing that. If anybody hears the video, I apologize if I've missed that. I'm always trying to inform myself of things. But yeah, I think the overarching civil rights violations. Yeah, it's the people, the organizations within the executive that are doing it, the agencies that are doing it, the people in charge that are pulling that are pulling the levers, however you want to describe it. They all need to be brought to justice if they're violating them directly, and if they aren't, then we need to make more laws or more robust laws to protect people and their civil rights. Uh, yeah, yeah. I don't like. I mean, this is one particular issue, but it's a countrywide issue. This
yeah,
ID card for voting. It's absurd. It's not a thing that needs to happen. They're pushing it because, of course, their lies. I bet, just why wouldn't you want to know who's voting in your election? It's like we already fucking know that. We know it. It's fine. The
yeah.
system works fine. They're lying because this is. I thought about it like I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not going to go on a rant, but yeah, sorry.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, well, which are, more local issues or any other issues that we haven't talked about. We haven't mentioned climate change. We haven't mentioned so many issues. So which are, more district-based issues that you would like to see fixed or
Um,
implemented?
yeah, I mean, a lot of those things that we've already discussed do affect the district in terms of like housing. We have a lot of unhoused people here,
Yeah,
homeless people. I don't care what we're going to what term we're going to use. People are on the streets. I don't see this. In the United States, it's a very big problem when we discuss any issue that might affect a group of people, because a lot of times we talk about it in terms of personal responsibility, which is just horse shit. I mean, yeah, if you
yeah,
have a city of 3 million people and you've got like three homeless people, we can talk about personal responsibility. But when you've got a large number of homeless people, a large number of people living in camper vans and RVs, it's a systemic issue. And how you address that, there are a lot of things that, again, I think need to happen. Curtailing of the finance industry, people are not going to like how this sounds, but I would even say the nationalization of industries, if
yeah,
not permanently, then for a temporary period of time. Um, if we want to live in a system where we don't give people some sort of universal basic income or have a robust welfare state, then we have to ensure that there are plenty of jobs. We do not have those. I know that I am in a position where I'm sort of a white collar worker, and I have been for a while. I had thought I'd put myself in a lane that said, hey, at the very least, I will always be able to get some really crappy job in an office somewhere because of the skills and the experience I have. And that turns out, of course, like everything else that is promised in this country for everyday people, so that's a fucking lie. Now I have to worry about job security at all times.
yeah,
That's not a situation that's stable. It's not a situation that is good for anybody, and it is these sorts of issues: housing, healthcare, the financial industry having way too much control over everything that we do, and this sort of capitalism run amok, which is what the country is, gangsterism at the top, highest levels. This has created an environment which homelessness is just in. It happens because it's going to happen. It's an inevitability.
yeah,
Um, Yeah, so that's one issue. I do think it's funny we don't talk about climate change as much as we used to, but we can feel the effects of it every day. The one thing that scientists had promised for 20 years, I'm old enough to remember when they promised all of these things would happen. They didn't know what distinct events would happen, but they simply said more dramatic and strange weather events would start happening at a greater frequency. Well,
Yeah.
that's what we see. It was over 100 degrees a couple of days, like last week here, and that's March in Los Angeles. I've never seen that before. I've lived here for over 20 years. Maybe there's times when it's happened, but I'm sure we'll get rain next week. And who knows, maybe it'll snow before the beginning of summer. So yeah, it needs to be tackled. There's a whole bunch to be said about that. I don't think it should be deprioritized just because we have these very immediate issues, but a lot of times people don't want to address it. One
Yeah.
thing I do want to bring up because my wife and I we foster animals, and what I have noticed, and this is kind of pertinent to this district, is there's many pet owners here. And what we see is kind of a small scale tragedy, I think, for most people in terms of the amount of dogs and cats that are strays that get euthanized. And there are a number of people, the rescue group we work with is just one out of countless in the Los Angeles area. And they don't have the ability or the funding to do the rescue work that's needed. There are way too many stray animals, which is not,
Yeah.
if you don't have an empathy for animals, that's fine. But do understand that the more animals there are in the streets, that increases the likelihood of disease, it increases the likelihood of car accidents, any number of problems. So we would want to try to curtail that. And one way we can do that is by going after things like backyard breeding. You go into any animal shelter in LA, you're going to see, broods of dogs from the same litter
Yeah.
because it just didn't, their dogs didn't turn out right. So they're gonna just shove them off and then try the next group and they'll make a couple $1,000s. Just having more tight restrictions on that, I think, would limit that a lot. And I just know people on the West Side, a lot of them own animals. They do have empathy for animals, but that's one particular issue I would like to, sort of focus on. It doesn't have to be the exclusive thing, of course, with all the problems happening in the world, but I do think it's an issue that I would like to discuss,
Yeah.
that I personally care about. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for
Yeah.
answering all my questions.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you. Again, like I said, doing the campaigning thing and starting from scratch, you never really know what you're supposed to do. So I've reached out to a lot of people like, hey, you want to interview me? And they're like, no, I don't. You're not interesting. So it's like, okay, well, whatever. So I appreciate you reaching out to do this. It's cool. I like it.
You're welcome. Well, have a
Yeah.
nice day.
Yeah, same to you. All right.